My name is Brian. I'm a reseller, but one of the best resellers I ever met was on the island of Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. Here's a shot of it. My name is Brian. I'm a reseller here in the Pacific Northwest, but I'm going to tell you about one of the best resellers, entrepreneurs I've ever met, and I've been doing this nearly 30 years. It was 1983. It was in a place called Diego Garcia, which is a little island atoll, middle of nowhere in the Indian Ocean. And there's not much there. It's off the tip of India. I'll show you on the map. Here's a Google map showing the island. It really is just a giant harbor. Fantastic for ships. Let me show you in perspective. Okay. It, of course, has disappeared off the map. It's easy to lose if you don't know where it is. Here's the Maldives, of course, and this little tip right here is India. The entrepreneur I'm talking about was located on that small island. The other India, not the one Christopher Columbus found when he stumbled ashore in North America and proclaimed that he'd found us. Of course, the people who were here never knew they were lost, but that doesn't stop history. Diego Garcia, called the British Indian Ocean Territories. So I was young, first time I was there, early 20s, just transited across that section of the Pacific Ocean, tied up the boat, and Liberty was put down, which means about 3/4 of the enlisted crew can go ashore. And when we got up and crossed the brow, looked around, there wasn't much there. We were tied up to a pier. You could see beaches and sand dunes in the distance. Kind of an island paradise. There was the pier. And at the end of the pier, where we were walking towards, because we knew somewhere on that island there were some warehouses, a PX, and a bar. Sailors going ashore are always interested in where the first bar is they come across. But at the end of the pier was a shack. It was probably originally built to be a guard shack or a control access point, but there wasn't much activity. And as we got closer, though, there was an old guy. And I say an old guy, though in retrospect, he's probably 15, maybe 20 years younger than I am right now. But compared to this group of young sailors, he was old. But he was standing next to a sign. And the sign said cold beer. And I believe the price was $1. Could have been $2. We weren't particularly focused on the price. Inside the shack, he had a refrigerator, probably as old as I was at the time. And then next to the refrigerator, he had some coolers that held some more iced beer waiting to reload the refrigerator. And then he had a stack of cases that were all lined up like infantry soldiers on parade. Yeah, he proceeded to sell us beer. There was nothing else going around. Ground transport hadn't arrived yet. He had everything a reseller needs to be successful. He had a product that was in demand. He had low overhead. He probably wasn't even paying the electricity on the shack. He had a big enough supply, or he thought he did. And he had a group of dedicated buyers who were interested in his product. And while we waited for ground transport, which took a little while, the 90 or so of us proceeded to wipe out his stock. So he had the next advantage. He had a short work day. You figure he probably showed up about an hour before we did, plugged in the refrigerator, iced down some more beers, stacked up and unloaded the rest of the cases to make sure he made a nice profit. And a couple of hours later, he was done for the day. He was probably, could take it easy, go sleep under a palm tree and relax. Think about what he was going to spend his profit on. So yeah, as far as side hustles go, entrepreneurs, resellers, that guy had one of the best gigs I've ever seen. And I'm sitting on the deck under my gazebo at the lake, and when the weather's nice, this is normally where I'll have my morning coffee. But along with my wife Rose, we resell. We're generalists. I retired for the first time in '97. And ever since then, I've been doing an assortment of side hustles, all reselling in one way or another, auctions, managing estate sales, stocking shelves in consignment stores, selling off architectural salvage, running a sawmill. Yeah, and it's kept me busy. We've got old, as happens. That's where the retirement part of this comes in, reselling in retirement. So we downsized. We're working on right-sizing. We try to work with a balance, enjoy our days when the grandkids are available. That's how we ended up in Shelton. My daughter moved my grandkids to the area, and we were living in a town about 45, 50 minutes north of here along the Hood Canal in Puget Sound, and decided it was time maybe to give up the acreage, the big buildings, the maintenance, the 2-story house after I injured a knee and couldn't really operate my sawmill anymore. So we started selling off the boom trucks and the forklifts and the extra trailers, and we followed that by selling the property, emptying it all the stock and inventory, and moving down here to the lake. A smaller place, smaller storage buildings, less to maintain, and we began to downsize the physical size of the product we stock and carry and sell. So now I focus on things like military surplus, patches, badges, challenge coins. We sell off items like antique tools, commercial hardware, repair parts, and of course I buy most of that with auction lots, because for the last 30 years sourcing from auctions is primarily what I've done. Now don't get me wrong, if there's a good thrift store and I'm in a parking lot, I got a half hour before an appointment, I'll duck into that thrift store, and if I see something of value that I can make a profit on, yeah, I'll do that. When we travel, and we try to do that more than we were when we were in our 40s and 50s and we were building houses for ourselves and maintaining acreage and building up the business. When we travel now, we keep an eye out for something unique that we can put in our suitcase and bring back with us and make a profit on. Helps offset some of the cost of the trip. I like cruise ships. As a sailor for 20 years, traveling around into foreign ports was one of the perks of the job. Traveling on a submarine or a cruiser is not the perk of the job. Tying those up and going ashore in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, the Philippines, which was where we had been before we got to Diego Garcia that trip. It took us a while, and it was our last cold beer was in the Philippines. Now there's some guys who in those days could do a side hustle. The city of Olongapo had about everything going on to separate American sailors from their money. Yeah, so was Hong Kong for that matter. Most of the first 10 years I was a Pacific Coast sailor, so we traveled around, we moved around. The second 10 years we lived overseas in places like Japan, Yokosuka, Japan, and then we spent 4 years there. And then we moved over to Naples, Italy. So we had a chance in my career to travel around, because once you're overseas and you treat your physical location as a hub, whenever you take your leave or you have a weekend off, you try to get out and enjoy yourself, see the other cultures. And immersing yourself in other cultures makes you reflect a bit what it is to be an American, because you're constantly contrasted with the country you're standing in, and the people you meet want to know about you just as you want to know about them. And it gives you a broader perspective about what's going on in the world, what a standard of living is, disposable income, tradition, all those things come into play. Adventures. We've had a lot of experience. We've lived many lives.